And this is important because he's talking about the rich people here. And I know I feel this all the time. I'm like, I don't have enough Bitcoin. What the hell can I do to get more Bitcoin? There's a whole bunch of people out there who have more Bitcoin than me. But just understand here how few rich people actually own Bitcoin. And if you understand why that is, he's going to talk about like how much more risk they have as opposed to us. So let's listen to what he says here, and then we're going to talk about it. So he kind of, okay, maybe he also talks about Gary Gensler, who we've been talking about on this channel here. I keep saying Gary Gensler is not who you think he is. So he kind of takes a little bit different approach. He says that Gary Gensler wants to further his political career and become the Treasury Secretary, and that's why he's made these decisions. But let's maybe just watch this whole kind of part here about Gensler and then about the rich people.
So SAB 121, legitimizing the asset, billions and billions of dollars of institutional capital flowed in. That was super helpful. What's it going to take to get to the next level? What are the current issues? The biggest one is being in custody and being able to borrow against it. So SAB 121 needs to get repealed. If Biden hadn't vetoed it, it passed. We know that there's bipartisan support.
Can you tell me
Congress.
what that is? Actually,
yeah, this is what prohibits traditional banks from custodying Bitcoin.
Okay.
And they want to.
Okay.
Right. So.
Is that so?
Okay, quickly on this, like I'm pretty sure this would have been filmed a while ago. I think that the majority of Breedlove's videos are filmed kind of batched, but I'm pretty sure like what they're talking about now, this was literally changed yesterday or last week, whenever BNY Mellon decided that, or the SEC gave them approval to custody Bitcoin. I think whatever they're talking about now has actually changed since then. So anyways, I want to mention that.
Sarbanes-Oxley?
SAB 121.
Okay.
Sarbanes-Oxley is like the
separation of investment banks from.
Yeah, this is just legislation that says if banks, I think technically, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure what it says is you can custody Bitcoin, but you have to hold dollar for dollar reserves. So
gotcha.
You want to custody $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, you have to hold $1 billion worth of cash in your bank.
Right.
It's idiotic,
Makes
right?
No sense, yeah.
It goes against the entire fractional reserve banking system, right? But it's really important that banks be able to custody. You're essentially, it's banks' ability to self-custody, basically, right? Ironically. So it's a really important thing. And reading between the lines, I think what happened was Gary Gensler, in my opinion, thought that if banks could custody Bitcoin, this might just grow a little too quickly for his comfort. And so he went to the administration and he said, hey, you've got to veto this if it gets to your desk, And Biden said, if this makes it to my desk, I'm going to veto SAB 121, right? And so I don't think he ever thought it was going to get to his desk. I think he thought that the Democrats would make sure to shoot it down. But what happened was the Democrats, their constituents, and not, crazy ones like the mainstream ones, the Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's of the world, right? Their constituents are the banks, right? In their states. And the banks have invested a lot of money in their custody solutions. The banks wanted to custody this asset because their customers want them to. And so if the bank can custody your asset, you can borrow against it. You don't have to sell your Bitcoin. You can get loans. That's great, right? It's massive for Bitcoin. And so I think the administration said, this is going to make Bitcoin go too quickly. It passed and Biden vetoed it. And that's where we are now. So that's a big hurdle that I think needs to be crossed. If Trump gets in, I'm sure that gets crossed pretty quickly. And that'll be a massive uptick for Bitcoin if and when that happens.
Is it mostly, like as you said, most of the high net worth individuals, their primary concern is to not get on the wrong side of the law because they're in the stay rich business, not the get rich business. And the last thing you want to do in the stay rich business is get crossed over with the state, right? Because they can take it from you pretty quick. Are their attitudes towards Bitcoin then primarily shaped by regulatory landscape? And if not, what else?
I think people underestimate how intelligent and resourceful, successful people are. These are not stupid people, and they have tremendous resources at their disposal, but they trust the resources that they have at their disposal. So they may call their representative at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs or, XYZ firm who's, got the pedigree that they identify with. And they say, hey, I'm looking into this Bitcoin thing. What do you think? And that person says, oh, no, you don't want to touch that for XYZ reason. Right. And that's where the conversation ends because they trust these people, right? Or their lawyer or whatever, right? And so that's what you're up against, is that systemic kind of framework that was against us, which is part of the importance of the Fidelities and BlackRocks of the world coming along, because they're the two most respected firms in the space. The other interesting thing about those two firms coming along is you've got BlackRock, which was started by Larry Fink, that he runs and created. So he's not serving as CEO at the pleasure of some board. It's his. So he can afford to be a little courageous. Abigail Johnson at Fidelity, same thing. She literally owns Fidelity. She is the heir to Fidelity. She doesn't have to worry about losing her job for, embracing Bitcoin. And these others that serve at the pleasure of a board and could be out of a job like this, those folks have been a little slower to adopt.
So the career risk factor is a very real component of at least your public advocacy for Bitcoin.
Yeah, most people think it's the same thing that's holding Gary Gensler back.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary Gensler could have taught a class on anything he wanted, anything financial he wanted. He chose to teach for 3 semesters a class on Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's what he chose to teach about. I don't know if you've ever watched the class. I think there's like 16 hours of it. You will be blown away by how knowledgeable he is. It's extraordinary. His level of knowledge about Bitcoin is amazing.
Yeah.
And so he's clearly passionate about it. He clearly appreciated it, but maybe it's his own political and career aspirations.
All right. So go on. I'm going to, sorry, I've kind of been ignoring Zap stream here, but, oh, I missed a lot. Sorry, folks. It looks like they're just chatting back and forth there anyways. But anyways, the reason I wanted to share that video is just to comprehend what's coming here. Like, he's talking about high net worth individuals there and how much risk they have. And I really want to break that down a little bit further, because if you think about it, someone like me in their 30s, right? I can afford to take some risk, not only because I have the rest of my life, presumably, to make that money back if something were to happen to me, but I also don't have a huge fortune that's at risk here. What are they going to take from me? That's kind of where I am. And I think that there's probably more people watching the show who are in the same spot. It's like, I'm going in on Bitcoin or I'm failing. I'm not trying to pussyfoot here around and play both systems, get some over here, diversify over here. It's like, no, if this thing goes, we're going to be good. If it fails, I'm going to start again. But you flip that on its head and you think about the people out there who are 60, 70, 80 years old and have amassed a lot of wealth. Their families depending on that. They're not going to go full steam into Bitcoin here and put that at risk. They have a lot more to lose there. And so what I want you to really understand about that is that just because these high net worth individuals haven't adopted Bitcoin yet, it's not because we're wrong about it. It's not because Bitcoin's not going to work out. It's not because Bitcoin's not what we think it is. It's because they haven't taken any amount of time or energy to figure out why we give a shit. They just haven't. As Eric said there, their advisor said, you don't want to look at that, focus on other things. So they did. They have way more things to deal with in their life, especially like CEOs of companies, high net worth individuals who have other people counting on them. They have way more at risk here. They don't have the time to be spending 2 hours on a Wednesday morning to learn about Bitcoin. That's the divide here. And I really want you to understand that, because just because Bitcoin hasn't reached the price or the value in fiat that you think it should have by now, doesn't mean that you're wrong about it. It just means that the people who can push that there, who can move the needle here, haven't taken the time or energy to try to figure out why. So that's an important part, I think, to understand.